Greetings and welcome to the Comics Coffee Metal Podcast. I'm your host, Don Cardenas, and today I'm joined by the immensely talented duo of Justin Richards, Val Halvorson. Thanks for coming on. You two are some really, really talented creators. Justin, you've been on the show before. Val, I've been wanting to have you on the show for a long time. Your work is fantastic. You've previously collaborated on a really cool book called Finger Guns. And you have a brand new book coming out from Mad Cave called The SLASHER'S APPRENTICE, which I got the chance to read the first issue, which is just phenomenal. It's really, really awesome. If you're a fondness of any type of slasher horror type of thing, this is going to be just, dessert for you. It's a really, really awesome book, and I can't wait to see where it goes. I can't wait to talk to you all about how you came up with the concept, what working on it is like and all that. But rule of the show, I got to ask, Comics Coffee Metal, what have y'all been digging right now? We can start with Justin.
I've been starting on like the more metal music front. I've been going both back and listening to the new Linkin Park album.
Okay.
I kind of got I listened to them. I was in middle school when Hybrid Theory came out, and so I was just like the perfect emo audience little kid to plug that into my brain. So I've gone all the way back through some of my favorites in like Meteora and stuff, but I also really dig the new one with the new singer Emily Armstrong.
Emily Armstrong,
right? Yeah. She's pretty good. I think I'm a fan.
Nice. Yeah, I remembered getting into her former band Dead Sarah a while back, but I hadn't listened to them in forever. So when she was announced as a new singer, I'm like, why does that name sound familiar? And it's like, oh, former Dead Sarah vocalist. I'm like, oh shit, like there you go.
Yeah, she's pretty awesome.
Yeah, awesome. How about you, Val? What kind of like metal or music have you been really vibing with lately?
I guess for like metal, just like industrial, and that's like one of the things I kind of ping pong between. Like I kind of listen to a bunch of different stuff, but I fall back on 90s industrial because it's warm and comforting, and a lot of like KMFDM and stuff like that.
Okay. KMFDM is one of the bands responsible for my entryway into metal.
Oh, really?
It was the remix of I forget the name of the song now. Of course, I forget the name, but the remix of the song that was on the Mortal Kombat soundtrack. It was I want to say it's called Sister Shotgun or something, but I don't think that's what it is.
Someone in the comments is screaming right now.
I knew the name of this song yesterday because I was adding it to a playlist, and I cannot remember for the life of me what it was. But just like the riff that kicks in,
they have killer riffs,
and I'm like, it's like one of those moments where like that part of your brain activates. You're like, oh, okay, this is something. I like this. This is interesting. What other kind of like industrial? Because industrial is kind of like a blind spot for me, because there's some stuff I know I like that would probably be considered industrial, but I'm not really that far into it. So I know KMFMDM. I know Rammstein kind of like flirts that. I don't know if they're really considered industrial or if they were, but now they're more just elder statesman kind of situation.
I feel like it's such a like it depends on who you ask kind of thing, where it's like someone would be like, oh yeah, they're industrial, then someone would be like, oh my god, no, they're not industrial. And it's like I don't know.
Yeah.
But
that's really any metal genre, really.
Or just like any music genre in general, really.
Yeah.
There's gonna be like a couple annoying guys in the comments that'll be like, "This isn't what this music genre is." It's like, okay,
They have too many songs under 180 BPM. It's not correct. That's not true industrial. Well, I had a guest on not too long ago, Dylan Gilbertson, who has a great book, which of course the name is escaping me now again now, but we were kind of getting into that, like what is industrial stuff, because I'm a big Static X fan. I like Static X, like, but I don't know if they would be considered industrial. I know they probably consider they have industrial influences, and Val, not that I'm putting you on the spot to be like the arbiter of what is industrial, but you know more than I do in this particular case. But like, is that kind of like a band that you've dug before, or are they too far
Static
removed?
X would be because they're kind of like in a Rob Zombie tier, you know,
Yeah,
where it's
yeah,
like Rob Zombie has definitely some like industrial stuff,
Yeah.
but like he's also kind of like, I don't know. I guess he's kind of more nu metal than like full on industrial. I'd say.
Yeah.
I think like Static X is maybe more like nu metal. That's just the vibes. I'm going off of vibes.
Yeah. And to be fair to them, they never classified themselves as industrial. I think they call themselves evil disco. So, that was
Those are my favorites. Like, have you ever heard of Volbeat before?
Yes.
They call themselves Elvis Metal and Roll, I believe is the name of it.
I mean, it fits. They had for a solid like couple months, like they had a pretty good hold on my playlist.
Oh yeah.
And then I was like, okay, that's enough. I'll respect you guys. That's enough. I don't need to hear Lola Montez anymore. It's fine. I've heard enough, But
it does. It's a little bit like once you've heard it,
it's the crooning, which works. But then after a while, it's like, oh, okay, that's kind of what they do all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, so it's very much like, if that's your thing and you love the band, like it's like being a fan of AC/DC, right? All respect to AC/DC. I love many AC/DC songs, but like at a certain point, you're kind of like, I get it. This is what you're doing. Not my thing. Actually, very recently, I had a chance to listen to the new Lacuna Coil album. Like,
oh yeah,
like a month. It's coming out tomorrow, Friday, as of this recording on the 14th.
I did not know that.
And I've been able to check it out because thankfully I've got on a few like music publicity lists somehow. They accepted my email as somewhere to send music to, and I've been a fan of theirs for a long time. And I love this new album. I think it's their best one since what was it? Broken Crown Halo, which was like 10 years ago. Not that I think they've had any bad albums really, but I was also kind of thinking like they are a band, like they do the thing they do, you know, and if you like it, great. This is going to be an album you're going to love. And if you don't like Lacuna, this is not going to change your mind. This is not going to change your mind at all.
That was me when you're making me think. I was going back and listening to some Tool recently, and they're very much that vibe. Like,
yes,
if they do what they do, and if you like it, you love it. Yeah. If you don't, it ain't for you. And they did that with.
I will say nothing.
all I would say about Tool is, as a musical band, I respect their ability. There's definitely a good handful of songs of theirs I do enjoy. As general people, I've seen them in interviews and stuff. They seem like really nice guys. They seem like good people. They don't seem full of themselves or anything like that. Not that I've seen or anything. But sorry, a lot of their hardcore fans are kind of insufferable.
Oh my god!
Which can be said about
the worst.
It could be said about pretty much any hardcore fan of a metal band, really. But there's just that extra air of like, no, you don't get it with Tool fans.
The music theory. But the music theory, man, it's like
they summoned that time signature from demons. No.
It drives me nuts because I used to be a piano teacher. So like I had to do music theory all the time, and so like when Tool fans are like, "Oh my god, that music theory in Tool," it's like, name it. What is the music theory? You just say the music theory. What is it? You just read that in an article.
Yeah. Now, not to be contrasted with hardcore Dream Theater fans, they'll tell you like, oh, when he switches to the Aeolian mode in this passage here, while they switch to a to a 12/6 meter on the drum, like, okay, all right, fine, you win, you win. I get it. No, but one of my favorite memories of Tool is like not actually a Tool memory, but like I was in a band in the around 2001, and it was very much like a rock and like a old school rock and roll punk band. Like imagine like if the Ramones were really, really, really into like Chuck Berry. And I was just in a band to be in the band. Like I wasn't like, because I met the guy at college and whatever, and I just needed to be in the band, and it was a fun learning experience. And we're at a gig, and I was just warming up, and I just started playing the Schism, because I play bass, and like a bunch of dudes like perked up, but then we started our set, which was not that. and they were so the looks on their faces were like, what was this? They got catfished by my bass riff. But I would I have a video of that too, because it was one of those places where like you have to sell tickets to play, but they like recorded it and then they put it on like public access TV, but they also gave you like a copy of the tape.
That's cool.
So I have a VHS of this.
Nice.
Somewhere in my attic that I have to like digitize before the VHS degrades to nothingness. So I have some sort of embarrassing memory to show my children, like, yeah, here's what when your daddy was an idiot, using a chain as a bass guitar strap, thinking he was cool, Anyway, back to you, Justin. Just real quick, like the Linkin Park thing, like they came out like I'm 42, so they came out like right in my like senior junior year-ish. Gotcha. So I didn't really like get into them super hard, except when I started to like try to like learn how to play guitar over bass, because a lot of their riffs were like really bouncy and easy to kind of learn and all that.
Oh yeah.
But I remember that for some reason, like just like the years, the classes before us were like, they really struck that chord. So like when people were like, oh man, Linkin Park sucks or whatever, like I'm just looking at all these like freshmen and sophomores under us, like straight up like overnight in like Linkin Park t-shirts and like hearing them play it, just like instantly I'm like, no, this is their my generation. Like I graduated in 2000, and so we kind of had like that weird like coming from grunge and like groove metal to like new metal. So everyone was just kind of like finding out like what bands do we actually like, because there's the Korn kids, there's the Pantera guys, there's the the old school thrash guys still, and then there's the grunge alternative people and all that. And as someone who like kind of liked it all, I was just like
same
floating everywhere. It's like, oh, this is cool. But yeah, so we never really had that huge like band that was like that touchstone, because like before us, obviously like Nirvana or Alice in Chains would be like the band. For us, it was just like everyone's like, well, it can't be Metallica because they suck now, or it can't be Pantera because I forget whatever reasons, like they weren't like, that wasn't like the peak of their stuff when we were at that right age. But I don't know, how about you, Val? Was there like a band that in like that crucial teen era where you're like, this was the band that we all like, was like, fuck yeah, these people?
I mean, for my generation, it's kind of the same, where it was just like you're taking like pieces from everything else. My generation, we had the ICP kids.
Oh, okay. Oh man. All right. So the Fago was flowing. I get it. Yeah. What was their thing called? The Gathering?
The Dark Carnival, The Gathering.
Yeah. I'm in Illinois, so I should know it, because I think they were in Illinois mostly.
Oh, are you in Illinois?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
I'm
hell
about
yeah!
I'm about 40 miles north of Chicago right now. Um, so yeah, yeah, ICP. Oh god, how could I forget about ICP?
See Val,
Well, I
I'll
mean, thank God I
like
forgot about them for a brief moment, but you know,
I was to say like Val earlier. I'll keep my mouth shut about ICP.
Oh, I don't.
well, yeah,
No, you don't
yeah,
have to. I am
yeah,
not an ICP stan.
Okay.
yeah. I'm not
I'm
worried about
just
angering any
saying.
ICP fans of this podcast. I don't think they're
I'm
listening.
not going to the Dark Carnival.
But you kind of like kitty corner to ICP. Like it's kind of interesting now to see bands like Limp Bizkit kind of like have a comeback now, like
Yeah.
be like nostalgic, which at the time, like I never really liked Limp Bizkit, but like for some reason now I'm like, well, that song's pretty cool. I like that one. Like not like, oh man, I think this is a great song. Like no, but for some reason I enjoy listening to this big dumb thing.
Yeah.
That's me with all that. Like I was again the perfect age for Limp Bizkit.
Yeah.
I got chocolate starfish and the hot dog flavored water. That was like one of my first 5 CDs I ever got, I think.
Yeah.
And I look back at it and I agree, like it's dumb, and I appreciate it for how dumb it is, but it
Hmm.
also does have that level of nostalgia for me because I was like 13 when that album came out.
You were perfect there. You were the right age for
Yeah.
that album.
Yep.
Which is funny because at the time, like I could sit back and I could say like, well, their drummer's great, their guitar player, he does really cool stuff,
I love
their
the
bass
riffs
player
that
is
the
really
guitar
good.
does. Yeah.
Um, again, I was a primarily a bass. I still consider myself a bass player despite this. Um, like so, I was playing the bass riff to Rearranged, mostly because it was very similar to a Metallica, Cliff Burton bass riff, but I could respect that, but for some reason, like the Fred Durst of it all. But now, apparently, now that he's like
An old
crossed that
man.
corny threshold, or maybe just because I've become a dad, so I'm just like, okay, I can accept the corniness, I can accept the whatever. I don't know. It's tempered me on it, I guess.
He looks like such a quintessential like old dad. And
Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah,
can get that.
yeah, yeah. Well, then he had that brief period recently where he was like all countryed out for some reason,
Yep.
which was really funny. I don't know why.
That's
It just because
everybody now.
yeah,
It's so weird.
My
it's
favorite was he had like a 90s jumpsuit in one performance,
nice.
like bright yellow. Just
It's
ridiculous.
it's always funny seeing him right next to like Wes Borland, who's like in like some crazy body paint and insane get up or
Yeah,
whatever,
some
and then the
big
other two
mask.
guys are just like dressed as normal dudes. They're just normal dudes, But I respect that. I respect the vibe of everyone's just like, I'm just gonna you do whatever you want to do. I'm fine. I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, and all that. So, well, how about some comics? How are some comics y'all have been enjoying lately?
Um, but
If you've
probably
had
the
time,
one
because we know how that goes.
I don't get a lot of reading time in, but I have been keeping up with grommets. I don't know if
Okay.
you've read that one. It's an image series by Rick Remender. I
Mhm.
forget who the artist is on it. I'm blanking.
How dare you forget the
Yeah,
artist?
I'm terrible.
Typical
I'm a
writer.
stupid writer. Yeah,
Typical
exactly.
writer.
I'm a stereotype right now.
Oh.
It's fantastic art though, and the series is just really great. It's just like like it's teenagers growing up
Mhm.
as punk skaters in the 80s and 90s. It's pretty great.
Nice. Nice.
I need issue 7 though. I need the final issue. It's not out yet. It's like been a minute. I need it.
Nice. Nice. How about you, Val?
I just started The Sickness,
Oh,
which that one's really good. It's Lonnie Nadler and now I'm blanking.
Jenna Cha.
Jenna Cha, yeah. The art's great.
The
Like,
writer knew that one. So
uh, but it's so detailed. Like, just all like the little like hatch shading is crazy.
yeah, the art
Yeah.
is great. That's a cool. If you like horror, like like body horror type stuff. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, I think we're kind of like in a real like golden age of artists doing just like really great horror, nasty, gross, but beautiful stuff. you know, it's really interesting. It's also like just the wide vary of the varied amount of artistic styles going into horror and doing horror, and it's something I've always wanted to see. It's just like, yeah, the ultra realistic or the more traditional style comic art. It's great, of course, but like I want to see someone who's got more of an exaggerated style do something that's just messed up. Um,
Totally.
I've people like Shadia Amin, who a bud who's been on the show before. Like I've told her before, like I would love to see you do just like something that's like just dark and like messed up in your style. Like it would just be so like interesting.
Yeah.
It would feel more interesting than someone doing just an ultra realistic style. Not that to knock on that at all in any way, shape, or form, but like, yeah. So it's really cool to kind of see that kind of stuff.
No, I think
I've been really
horror.
enjoying. Yeah,
Sorry, I was gonna say horror comics are like eating really good because I was thinking
yeah,
of
yeah.
dwellings, kind of along that,
Mm-hmm.
like what you were saying, where it's like a non-traditional style, but like really messed up stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
It's one of my favorite. Jay Stevens on that one is really good.
yeah. You know, Kelly Williams, one of those people whose style is
Yeah.
like not what you consider traditional horror because his faces are very expressive, big eyes, all that kind
Yeah,
of stuff. But like just the way he renders things is just nuts. And it's just the recent series he had, I believe, with Mad Cave Skeeters was just like chef's kiss of like 80s gross horror stuff that was just
yeah.
like perfect. Um, I've thankfully been able to read some comics lately because I've been so bad at it. But part of my 2025 goal is to, instead of just sitting here talking about how I don't have time to read comics, just reading some damn comics. Don't sit here and think about, oh, when am I going to read it? Just sit down and read one. How long is it going to take you, man?
Yeah.
So I've been really enjoying FML from Kelly Sue DeConnick and David Lopez.
Nice.
I just got this one in a Kickstarter from my buddy Mike Schwartz, Water Racers.
Oh,
It's an all
cool.
ages book. It's a book he actually developed with his kids. Like they developed the characters,
Oh,
I've known Mike for a while. He had this a really great book about 10 years ago called Oceanverse. And he's got a great style, but like I know he's been working on this book with his kids forever, and they finally got it done. And like it's really cool because in the back you can kind of see like where the kids are helping with the character designs and all that. And
that's really neat.
um, but then he takes it and he draws it in his style, which is really great. And it's just really fun because I got this. I was starting to read it. It's really good. And then my daughter, who's 8, started checking it out, and she's like, "Ooh, is this?" Because she knows to ask, like, "Is this for kids?" And I'm like, "Yes, it's for kids," because she's tried to grab Marvel Zombies or the Invincible trades or Walking Dead a few too many times. I'm like, "No, no, no, not yet. One day, but not yet." But I was kind of telling her like, "Oh yeah, they made it together and all that." So I could see the wheels turning in her head. So like
Nice.
you know every sappy art dad's dream, i.e. me, like, let's do something, kid. Like, let me know when you got
Totally.
an idea that
I love that.
we can do something. But yeah, and also because the comics I draw, they can't really read those because those are horror usually horror comics or too violent. I never planned to be a horror artist, but I just ended up working on those kinds of books, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, this isn't about me. This is about y'all, and we have one more thing to talk about before we dive into your awesome new comic that I read, The Slasher's Apprentice, and that is coffee. You know, Obviously, I'm no stranger to coffee. I love coffee. It's in my life. I'd be drinking it right now if I just didn't was too lazy to brew another pot or another cup. But how about y'all? Are you big coffee heads, or do you just like some tea or some good old seltzer water? Are you healthy?
No, I drink at least a cup a day, usually quite often two. I like hitting a good Dutch Bros from time to time.
Mhm.
Usually just make something at home. Usually a dark or medium blend.
Nice, nice. Do you have a brand you kind of prefer, or? Just whatever's on sale, really.
Just anything not Starbucks, really.
Yeah. Fair.
I stick with like Pete's. I think is one I get a lot,
Okay.
which I think is a different Seattle-based
Mm-hmm.
company. They have some pretty cool stuff, and I'm friends with John O'Deener, who owns
Mm-hmm.
Rootless Coffee, and so I
Yes.
do still order from them from time to time because I
Yes.
really like their stuff.
Yeah, we're a rootless household. We have the 5-pound bag of damn fine coming in every
Nice.
couple months, and all that. Which was actually I better double check because we're running a little low. I got to see if that shipment's coming anytime soon.
Good
How about
reminder.
you, Val?
I'm not a big coffee guy. I like coffee in things,
Okay,
Okay.
but
fair.
like just straight up coffee, I'm still like, eh. But I do tea sometimes too.
Mm-hmm.
I like chai. Chai's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's my favorite tea. Yeah, like
Matcha.
if okay, cool. Yeah, chai teas are my are like I used to be a tea person before I was a coffee person, but I was kind of a tea person with like an obscene amount of sugar. And then I was a coffee person with an obscene amount of sugar, and I still take sugar in my coffee, but not nearly as much as I used to. Like literally like a quarter of the amount of sugar I used to take, which is still too much for some people. But uh, yeah, I like a good chai latte. Like speaking of Starbucks, like I never get their coffee. It's always like a chai latte, which is essentially just like a sweet drink or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, coffee is kind of the lifeblood around here. I've had to cut back a bit. Well, I didn't had to. I've been trying to cut back a bit, just because there's I find my caffeine tolerance is getting a little too high. I need to kind of scale it back because uh yeah, I find like it's doing nothing for me. So I'm like, I like the taste of it, of course, but it's also like, yeah,
You
maybe,
missed
maybe I'm having
that
too
pick me
much.
up.
If I'm drinking 3 cups of coffee and one of them's like at 10 o'clock at night and I'm still just going right to sleep, like maybe my tolerance is a little too high right now. Maybe I should cut back a bit,
Scale
wean
back a
myself down a
little.
little bit, just a little, just enough to where I don't want to kill anybody, but like, and all that. But yeah, we are definitely rootless fans here, every day. So awesome. I've never really had matcha tea though. I've never really tried it. I don't know what it tastes like. I've heard people talk about how much they enjoy it, but I'm like, I don't. I For some reason the name of
It,
it like throws me off. Like I don't know if I want to try that for no reason other than it's like the name is weird to me for some reason, which I have no
I
explanation for.
mean, some matcha is really, really good, and then some matcha is really, really grassy.
Okay.
It just kind of like depends on like the quality of the matcha.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like kind of like the cheaper blends of matcha get really, really grassy in the flavor, and that's not so good.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But like I don't remember like all the specifics. There's like a crazy amount of like specifications and everything else, and like it has to come from this region in Japan to
Okay.
be this great. It's like that's like over my head, but I know it tastes
Too much.
good.
Too much. Yeah. 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 I get that totally. A great artist and buddy, Jonathan Lamantia, their partner is actually like a tea expert.
Oh,
Like, uh, so I,
they're in Chicago, right?
yes. Um, and so I should probably hit them up and say like, well, so what would you recommend if I was going to try matcha for the first time? Because I'm sure they would have some solid recommendations and all that. And I owe Jonathan what's going on anyway, because they're awesome, and I have to have them back on the show too. But speaking of awesome horror artists, the
Yeah,
insane
I love their
the
stuff.
insane detail that they have on there is nuts. And it's really kind of funny because Jonathan does a lot of album artwork for a band of a YouTube guitarist that I was following for a long time and had on the show before and all that. And all of a sudden I see like Jonathan's doing artwork for that dude's band, and then like I see in the background of one of his videos is Tyrell Cannon's Doom poster. I don't know if you're familiar with Tyrell Cannon, but another
Yeah.
great Chicago artist. And I'm like, why are all of my friends like showing like, this dude? And it's like it's just this weird, like we all circled around Andrew Baina, super low guitar player for some reason, but but yeah, awesome. So let's get to the meat of it. Let's talk about the Slasher's Apprentice. This is a really awesome looking book. Thanks again for sending the first issue. I really enjoyed it. So I'm really bad at this because I'll end up talking a whole bunch about the book and be like, oh yeah, what's the book about? So catching myself now. What the hell is the Slasher's Apprentice? Let us know.
The Slasher's Apprentice is Val and I's love letter to the slasher genre. It follows a girl named Riley who grows up obsessed with horror, slasher horror, and slashers in general. And she has a podcast, and she finds her way to being an apprentice for a local legend named the Hopton Valley Killer.
Nice. Very good pitch line there, because it feels like such a really heavy dark story, but there's just such this like twist of just the wanting to be the apprentice at the end, which I guess really isn't, it's the title of the book, so it's not really that much, you shouldn't be surprised that's what happens at the end of the issue, but it's still kind of like really cool the way it's all set up and all that. You kind of introduced this like true crime podcast obsession angle with that. So in developing the story, like, was this something that what part, like, because I know the where did your ideas come from is a dumb question, but like what part of the story like kind of came first with like someone being an apprentice, or just someone being obsessed with the true crime stuff, or somewhere in between there?
My I drew a lot of inspiration from, like, I wanted to do slashers in general, but when I was thinking about my favorites, one of my favorites is Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Vernon. And I love just how it does kind of some behind the curtain type of stuff. And, he's talking about how he has to practice chasing people, but looking like he's only walking, but keep up with them and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like, I love that kind of stuff. And I wanted to push that kind of concept forward. And so I started thinking about a way that could uh, introduce it, like something like that, and kind of bring a fresh look at it. And just the idea of like an apprentice helping like hide bodies, or turn off the power in the basement, or
Mm-hmm,
stuff like that, like just kind of set the mood or make things happen how you see them in the movies, but
mm-hmm.
do it kind of in a more realistic setting.
Nice. Yeah, that Rise of Leslie Vernon movie, that's very underrated. I think it's one of the most underrated horror movies
Hard agree.
that's been around.
I love that
Um,
movie.
it's been ages since I've seen it, but yeah, it's definitely one of those ones where it's like you remember, like, just because it's just so unique, and like just such like a, oh, no one really did this before, and it just kind of sticks with you. Now, was, in developing the story, did you work with Val in the story at all, or was it kind of like, here's the first script, what do you think, do you want to do this?
So, as you mentioned at the top of the hour, so to speak, Val and I worked together on Finger Guns and
Mm-hmm.
had a great time. We've been buds ever since. We watched a ton of horror movies together, and
Nice.
we both love horror. And so I just kind of had the concept and the rough idea, and I knew I wanted Val to be involved kind of from the get go. And so before I even wrote it out, I just had like an outline, and I was like, "What do you think of this? Is this cool? Would you work on this with me?" And luckily, Val was like, "Yeah, that is pretty cool." Like, so then I fleshed it out into a pitch, and he did some sweet character designs, and
Nice.
here we are. And then we did co-write the scripts together once Mad Cave picked the book up.
Oh, awesome. Great. I love to hear that the artist was involved with the story development and all that, because not that great stories can't come, from the writer, and then the artist does their interpretations, but just hearing that collaborative effort, because that ends up being a lot of the way I end up working with people, and I love to see it, and I really enjoy it as an artist, and get a lot out of it myself. So it's nice to see that's happening in other places. The true crime aspect of it is interesting, because I just had on Frankie White and Adam Markowitz, and they had the Who Killed Sarah Shaw. That's a tongue twister for me. Who Killed Sarah Shaw, which had that true crime kind of, I don't want to say twist or angle to it, because like, like the first issue here, and like that book, it's not like a over reliance on it. It's just a part of the story. Was that a key? Was including that because it's such a thing in the zeitgeist now? Was that like a real key part of, like, we want to kind of like comment a little bit on this obsession with death and all that, or was it just something that you just felt was just like a natural part of the what this character would do? Because that just seems like someone obsessed with that would become a slasher's apprentice at some point. The A to Z there seems really easy. Not easy, but like
I
it seems like, yeah, I get it.
I think it was important to put that in there just because Riley is like kind of going against the grain of like these like older kind of slasher tropes, and so like having like, okay, this is like what's happening like now, like we're doing a lot of like true crimes type of stuff, like have it be kind of more, I guess, like modern on her end, and just like commenting on that, because like that is huge, like just like that's like all over the place. Is you can't escape true crime. Like even your mom watches true crime now. It's like
Yeah,
it's everywhere.
yeah.
um
It's definitely one of those things where it's like it's inescapable, and well, not, I kind of started getting into it a while ago, probably like 8 years ago, when it first, like, the podcast and stuff really started going into it. But I had a really bad experience with one podcast listening to it. I'm like, I just had those moments where, like, I don't need to hear this anymore. I don't. It was like playing 911 calls for a
Yeah.
particular event, and I'm like, why am I listening to this? I don't need this in my life right now. So it's not a mark against anybody who does all that. And it's like, no, I'm just saying, like, that. That's when I realized this is not for me. Like, I like horror, but I like the splatter punk, the I'm a gore hound, and I'm not like, oh yeah, the real dark, twisted, nasty stuff. Like, nah, I don't care for Hostel, but give me, you know, uh, Dead Alive all day. you know, that's kind of my jam. I'll take Basket Case over, something like Serbian film or something like that, which I've only heard about, and I'm like, oh, no, thank you.
I feel
But
like a
yeah,
Serbian film is like a litmus test for a horror fan. Like it's like, okay, what do you think about a Serbian film? And if they're like, oh yeah, it's so basic, it's like, I don't want to talk to you.
I don't feel
Bye.
comfortable around you. I
Red
need
flag.
I need another adult here right now. Preferably one you don't know. um, well, one thing I did want to talk about the book was the art. And Val, you do something here that I am envious of, because I don't have the confidence to do that, and that is not literally using every single space on the page for your panels. You have a lot of negative space around your pages, which I immensely respect, because for me, it's just I've tried that, and I just feel so self-conscious about, like, leaving that much space, because I'm like, I don't know if I'm doing this, I'm conveying this correctly enough without using all that space. And that's my own insecurity about it, because, like I said, I really enjoyed the book. It reads great. Your storytelling spot on, like, you know 10 10, no notes. It's just like, so that I'm bringing it up as a is it a conscious choice for you to do that kind of stuff, or is that just kind of ingrained in your style when you're laying things out?
I would say that's a conscious choice. I like to, I guess, like I think of it as like a rhythm almost, where it's like going through a script. I'm trying to think about like, okay, which story beats need to really hit, and like, how am I gonna have this like timed? Because like, I think panels are really good at like either like slowing down time or making it really, really fast. So it's like
Yeah.
if you have like a really huge panel that takes up like the entire page or whatever, it's like you have to like actually like look at the whole thing, look at all of that. But like if you have all these tiny itty bitty little panels, like they're so small, like
Mm-hmm.
they're just like these tiny little like moments of time. So I think like also using like the negative space of the page works for that too, because it can kind of like make a moment feel more isolated almost. If
Yeah,
you
it
just
definitely
like,
adds to some like almost like the claustrophobic nature of some of the scenes, or just like the
mhm.
intimacy of like, especially towards the end of the book, as Riley's approaching the final pages, it definitely gives it quiets it down. Like it kind of like shuts off. It's almost like a white noise filter around everything. It just allows you to zero in on that. Um, Another cool thing I really enjoyed about the book was the design of the killer. It's very unique. Were there any particular inspirations you drew from that, Justin? Did you have like, I'm thinking kind of something like this, or was it like Val go nuts?
It was very Val go nuts. I one of the main reasons, aside from just enjoying Val's work and company, that I wanted him to be involved was this man knows horror more than I do. Like if I was going to do a book that was gonna try and play in this field, I wanted his, you know, approval the whole way or something to that effect. And so I knew just letting him kind of come up with something, I was like, let's just make it something unique and you
Yeah.
just go for it. And he came back with this really creepy photo from like what was like the 40s, like this old Halloween costume.
Yeah, where it's just like they had all
Pull up
these like
pre-order that
really
picture. Yeah.
vintage like
Yeah.
animal masks, and they're so creepy. And I'm like, well, that would be cool to have on like a killer.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I was just thinking like because I wanted to make it seem like okay, this killer's been around for a while, so like
Yeah.
have like kind of like this old like army jacket and have it be all tattered and like
Mm-hmm.
beat to shit, and then like just this vintage lion mask where it's like what time is that even from? I don't even know, like if you're like looking at it, so it's like you don't really know how long they've been around.
Yeah. You know, it's it's really great to hear you say that, because when there's three like sorry, three like really unnerving parts about the look to me personally. One is obviously the mask. The second one is the 3/4 length gloves, like the rubber gloves. Like for some reason, those just like just give me the ick, or whatever it is you want to say. And then just like the details, like those multicolored, there's a buttons or circles or whatever that's on there, that feels like it could be something really important to the character, or it's just like this weird multicolor thing right here where you're like, what is that? Like it's just like drawing, it just like draws me in. But the mask, when I was looking at the mask, I'm like, obviously it's a lion's mask, and it really reminded me of many years ago, my wife and I went to the Field Museum in Chicago, and they had like the first, like, it was a display, it was a one of the attractions was like, like the first World's Fair attractions or whatever, and they had this stuffed lion, but
I
it
think
was
I
put
know which one
together
you're talking about. I've been
by
there.
someone who obviously had no idea what they, like, they were given this lion's skin, and they're like, here, stuff this thing, and they're like, what is this thing? And it just kind of has that like look where it's like, this is nightmare fuel right here. And that so when you mention like the old masks from like the 40s, I'm like, yes, that's exactly what my brain's pointing to, because you look up any old costume pre like 1980, and you're like, this is scarier than anything we have these days. Like, it's just so like the printed, vinyl, whatever clothing they would have or whatever, and just like some fucked up looking animal mask. But yeah, it totally gave me that like something's off about this, really really off. So I'm glad that was kind of like the inspiration, because again, it just adds to the whole, like, just like you see this guy, you're like, there's no question, you're like, no. You're just like, no. You see this guy, you're like, no, thank you.
Yeah, the idea behind HVK, as we call them short for Hopton Valley Killer, they kind of represent like an amalgamation of the classics of horror throughout the decades. And so the idea was that's why they don't talk. And they only communicate through violence and intimidation and just being this killing machine. And so yeah, like that, those dead eyes were essential. And Val also, yeah, the buttons you mentioned are genius on his part, where we were like, well, if they've just been killing throughout the decades, like they got all these buttons that they've just taken off of random people. And so like there's like, maybe like I voted for Nixon or something kind of like we had these like interesting little ideas for like, the various decades that we could represent. So I think there's like a smiley face one from like a 70s, kind of
oh, nice
stuff like
nice
that.
Please let there be like a Ross Perot one or something. I like Ike. No, seriously though, it's and a lot of the kills, they definitely seem to be very well constructed. I've spotted a few homages, just especially one where I'm like, I wish I had 3D glasses for this one. I think you guys could figure out which one that one is. But there's one question I did have was like, there seems to be no real consistent like weapon for this character. Is that something, because horror character is almost synonymous with like, what do they use to kill? Is that something that just we haven't seen yet? You don't want to say, or like just this killer is just like whatever's available?
It was a conscious decision. We discussed it very early on, and we agreed that they are of the moment. They very much will use anything that is around, and they don't really repeat unless it, like, I mean, like they'll use the same knife multiple times in a row, but aside from like usually using knives, like they have a lot of knives, there's no specific knife, no specific weapon, because they will, as we wanted to, I'm glad that you mentioned the kills, because that was kind of, that's Val and I nerding out, going, what's the most messed up thing that we can make Mad Cave pay us money to write right now?
I mean, there's one very early in the book involving someone at the fridge, which is just like, no, thank you. Like,
yeah, we wanted to start strong and send the message that this book is gonna give you those kind of icks that you're talking about.
Yeah, awesome. And also, I think it really like opens up like the chance to use environmental stuff, which is always a fun. Whenever that does happen in those kinds of movies, is always like a fun, like, yeah, sure, Jason had the machete, but like everyone remembers the sleeping bag kills.
I was just gonna say the sleeping bag.
Exactly.
Or well, technically it's not Jason, but everyone remembers how what happened to Kevin Bacon, that kind of stuff. So like just whatever's available, or the environment and stuff like that. That's always a fun aspect of it all. Now, when y'all are developing like the script and all that, like, since you mentioned that Val co-wrote the scripts, Justin, do you like have like how does that back and forth kind of work with you too? Is it you kind of have like an outline, or you kind of like bash together, like you kind of talk over some like a basic outline, and then like you kind of like pass it back and forth? How does that kind of collaboration work with you?
Yeah, it was very hand in hand for the most part. The only part that I really worked on alone was the early outlining. Um, but once I had that basic structure and we kind of knew what we were doing, Val and I literally just got on the phone or on the internet and pulled up a shared document and just literally wrote it together back and forth, going over every kill, every panel, every
Mm-hmm.
dialogue choice. It was very, very co-written.
Awesome, awesome. Val, when you're working down with the script, like, are you is writer Val a different thinker than artist Val, or is it kind of like one of the same? Because I find like,
Uh,
yeah, it,
Sometimes I curse myself for making me draw something that I don't want to
I
draw.
told
Like a
I told
crowd
Val.
scene.
does this really have to be a full club, guys? Like, come on, like it could be like like 10
I
people maybe tops, you know?
I told
It's like that's
I
a problem for a later me, and then later me's
Yeah.
like, fuck.
I told him this time. I was like, you can't just be mad at me. It's
Yeah. Um, well, since you do co-write the scripts and all that, so I take it that you don't usually, do you like wait till like the script is like, okay, we have our script, now I can start breaking down thumbnails and layouts and stuff like that, or is that something you kind of like as you're writing, you're like, you know what, this, let me kind of sketch this out real quick. Does that help you figure it out, or is it just like you prefer to like type it out, write it out before you start the visual aspects?
We pretty much just wrote together like the whole, like every script really before we did any art. Um, I think it's more helpful having like a full script just like done before like going into thumbs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it definitely gives you a chance to like, you know, seed stuff early on if you wanted to, or that might change later or whatever. Or just
I did.
like if you want to have any kind of like visual mirroring for anything like that, it lets you, it lets you think a little more freely that way, as opposed to like, oh man, well, I laid out this really cool page, but now if I want to do this, I have to like scrap it.
Hmm.
um,
I think
so,
Val and I both think really visually and very
mhm,
like we both think kind of like filmmakery, and so
yeah,
like when we wrote it, like we kind of write it pretty artist friendly together anyway. And then so
yeah.
yeah, I think there was like two, maybe three moments that like we did some kind of sketch up a bad reference type of thing for Val to reference later, but otherwise, yeah, we just kind of block it
Yeah,
out very visually anyway.
yeah. All right, cool. Yeah, because it definitely seems that there's a lot of times where the art's just, being allowed to speak for the book. There's not an abundance of dialogue in sections and all that, which, speaks to one, you know trust in your trust in your writing, that you got what has to be conveyed in this scene down, trust in your collaborator, but also just like trust in that, yeah, the project as a whole, that this is going to read how we wanted to do it, which is great, because I wish more, and there are more, but I wish more people would, you know do that. I know I've spoken to some people who feel like the writers who feel like they kind of have not a hang, like a personal like they know that they shouldn't feel this way, but they feel kind of like bad, like if there's not a lot of dialogue in the scene, because you're like, I'm not really doing anything here, but it's like, well, you're kind of like, you're just, it's just not on the balloons, it's what's feeding into the artists to draw the page and all that. But so it's again speaking of that confidence, to have like, okay, I don't need to like put word balloons on every panel here, people are gonna know I wrote this shit out of this book, and Val also wrote the shit out of the book and is drawing the shit out of the book. So like just having that that solid foundation as a team is really good. And it does come across in the book, because this book does read like, a solid unit, flowing through the story. There's no elements where like, oh, the writing is a little bit stronger than the art in this book, or the art's a little bit stronger. It's like, no, it feels like this is a child with both his parents. Not to mention, the fantastic colors and all that, but the very, you know very, like, I don't want to say subdued, like very this like mood and vibe oriented, which I always enjoy seeing, because as much as I love a beautifully rendered colorist work, I feel like, more people should just be allowed to like just color on vibe, some simple shadows here and there. Don't kill yourself, like, because you can do so much more with less, with some of this stuff, and it works really well with your art as well.
Yeah, that's
Now, do
actually,
you?
I was gonna say that's Rebecca Nalty,
Yeah,
who
yeah. I
is
was gonna.
returning from Finger Guns with us,
Yeah.
actually, and it's been yeah, an automatic breeze having her
Yeah.
on again, and very much like you said, like her and Val, they mesh very well together with minimalist effect, and
Mm-hmm.
she knows when to pop in and have something
Mm-hmm.
really cool, like an awesome sunset, or
Mm-hmm.
a pop of red during a cool kill, or those kinds of
Mhm.
things. But yeah, she
Yeah. Or
chooses
just,
when to
yeah,
shine. It's awesome.
yeah, just something as simple as like the glow of a computer screen, or like knowing when to have that spot in. And it's great that you can continue the team from Finger Guns, and so you have that, like, already have that kind of working relationship with the colorist, and so there's not really a lot of like guesswork. I don't know if you, Val, if you work closely uh with her on that, on the colors, or it's just kind of like, no, you do you. I know you got it.
It's mostly just that. It's just like,
Yeah,
yeah, you do you.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I've been lucky enough to work with a few colors with like very differing uh mindsets. Like I worked with one colorist who, I don't think that's how he would normally color, but as dictated by the head of the book, was very rendered, like super rendered, like cuts everywhere and holds and all this stuff. So much so that like I usually tend to be, when I want to, like, very liberal with like spotting blacks and stuff like that. It was at the point where like I wasn't allowed to do that because they wanted it to be colored dark. So I just like felt bad, like, I'm sorry, you got to do more work for no reason whatsoever. It looked cool. Don't get me wrong, it looked cool, but I feel like, but what didn't really feel necessary that they had to put that much work into it. As opposed, and that person actually was a very talented artist in their own right. Roman Gubsky, who's like just super talented artist if you get a chance to check them out. But and then with Evie and the Housings, Jason Millay, also fantastic art. See, I have a habit of working with colors who are like better artists than me, so it's like, sorry, first of all, you guys have to like stare at this. But Jason's very much like vibe based, like, especially with it being like a band book, like he'll like allow a panel just to be a swath of like a stage color with like a few little minor things like that, and it's such a contrast. Like there's been panels where like I envisioned it in my head, like, oh man, I can't wait to see this colored, and it's nothing like I envisioned, but it's still awesome, and uh, so having that kind of like trust in the colorist, not that, it sounds more serious than it is when you say trust, but you know what I mean. It's like just knowing it's gonna look cool. It's gonna look cool. Val, do you work digitally mainly or traditionally with the
Fully
prints?
digitally.
Okay. Do you are you Clip Studio, Procreate,
Oh yeah, I'm
Photoshop?
all about Clip Studio.
Nice,
Love Clip
nice.
Studio.
Clip Studio supremacy. All right, I'm with you.
Hmm.
I was strictly traditional until 2020, and then I made the switch to the iPad, and I just forced myself to learn it. And it wasn't until I like found like the right brushes that kind of like I was able to like, okay, this feels like what I do, that I was able to like really start embracing that. Have you always kind of worked digitally? Because digital has been kind of around forever at this point. So like there's a lot
Uh,
of artists now who've only pretty much really worked digitally with their
yeah,
professional work. So.
pretty much. I started doing digital art when I was 12 with Neopets.
Nice.
That's hardcore.
Hey, there's someone who's probably like started their digital art with like Mario Paint on SNES or something like that. It's fine. We all have those inklings of like where things where things start. I do you have like any favorite brush, like any go-to brushes for Clip Studio, if you care about talking about those at all, or
Ooh, I do, but like, I have no idea what it's actually called because it's in Japanese. Um,
I know exactly what you're talking about when you go to the asset store and you're just like you download all these cool
yeah,
like, oh, this is a really cool texture thing, and then you download
like,
it and you're like, what's the name? I don't know what this
like
is. You just kind of look at the
it.
picture best you can to figure out what
I
it
use
is.
that brush for everything, but I have no idea what it's called.
Nice, nice. No, yeah, I totally get it. I've for some reason with like brushes and like even with like music stuff, like digital amp modelers and stuff like that, like I kind of hoard them for I don't really use them all, but I'm like, oh, that's cool. What, it's like $2? Sure, okay.
Mhm.
And then I sit back, I'm like, oh, why do I have like 5 of these things that are pretty much the same? I don't need like 4 versions of the same guitar amp model on a plugin that were either free or like less than $5, but I have them because I don't know. But brushes are kind of the same way. But there are certainly brushes that I've really like. The Friendin brushes, like he was one
Brendan,
of the first.
yeah,
He was one of the
yeah.
first who really like got people like, oh, these, yeah, using the stock brushes, because I just had Mike Norton on, and Mike's been doing digital work for a very very long time, and as far as I know, he still uses just like the G nib from Clip Studio. Like he's like, that's what I started with. That's what I got. I'm like, okay, Mr. Professional. You don't need, but but no, like his stuff really like got me like that. His not Scott brushes in particular. Like once I tweaked them a little bit, I was like, this is exactly like what what I try to do with traditional stuff, and I didn't. And since you kind of like were primarily digital from the start, like I don't know if you ever had that moment where you're like, I'm trying to like copy what I'm doing on paper here digitally. You're just like, no, this is just what it is. This is what, and you're just
um,
refining from what you have,
I still had
digitally.
that kind of moment though, where I was trying to like get something where it had like a grit to it, because like so
Mm-hmm.
many digital brushes are so clean.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
and,
like the ones that have some like little rough texture to it.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I would, another fantastic artist, Jason Piperberg. He has a lot of great brushes. Like he recently had like a dry brush set that I've just been in love with. I've been using it a lot for like textures and stuff like that. But like if you're looking for something with some grits and all there, he he's got some good stuff, because I know exactly what you mean. Because there's things where I'm like, I need like some grit on this. I need some dirt on
Hmm.
this thing. It needs to be a little messy. And the trouble is like there's plenty of them, but a lot of them end up looking really uniform.
Yes.
There's not a lot of ones that have like that variation that happens too much, or whatever. So no, I totally get what you're saying there. Sorry to drag you along this nerdy path of digital brushes, Justin, but we're
I'm here for it.
it's the name of the game.
Yeah.
I used to I tried to actively avoid asking people the tools they use because it felt like such a tired question. But then I'm like, fuck it, it's my podcast. I don't care.
There you
I
go.
want to know this
You make
stuff.
the rules.
Yeah, I want to know like what's your favorite hatching brush or whatever like that. Because have you dived into like making your own brushes yet?
I tried that a little bit, and then I'm like, uh,
Yeah.
I could just go onto the store and get a brush. So,
Because I've kind of like fallen into it just because I was doing a lot of the same things. I'm like, you know what? Let me just make a brush of this, and I end up like not using it anyway for what I intended to be, but it ends up becoming something different. Like there was like a facial hair brush I made that I just ended up using as like a hatching kind of like speed line background thing that looks really cool. So it's just like one of those things where it's like I didn't intend it to be this, but I like it for this. So, and then there's like another one I did for like arm hair that just ends up being like a really cool hatching brush. And there's another one where it's like these like roughed like straight lines. But I found that if I just like press harder on there, it'll like spiral them out from whatever setting I fucked up on the thing. I'm like, that just looks fucking cool. Like, okay, I'm like, yes, So maybe I'll put them out there because I did make guitar brushes that I sell on my site that I forget I have up there. Then occasionally I'll see someone bought them. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But
Nice.
but it's just one of those things where it's like I could easily spend way too much time fucking with those things though. That's another thing too. It could be a gigantic time suck. But I recommend like next time you get the itch for it though, just I don't know, just fuck around with it, I guess. I don't know. Or not. I don't I'm not your dad. I'll tell you what you do. So the Slasher's Apprentice. Is this an ongoing? Is this a mini? Is this something that we're gonna do as long as we can, or
It's
is there a
it's currently planned as a 5-issue mini.
okay?
Um, for anybody who's read Finger Guns, you might know my ending style might leave room open for stuff. Nope, not spoiling anything here, but I think I always can find a way to push more if I'm allowed to. So like if y'all
Well,
like the book and
yeah.
you buy it a bunch, then maybe we can get some more in. But it's a mini series, 5 issues.
Well, drawing from the inspiration of the book, never really ends. there's
Exactly.
always there's
Mhm.
always a way. There's
This is
always a
slasher
way.
horror, baby.
Yeah,
Nobody's
yeah.
ever dead.
It and there's thankfully a lot more great independent books these days that or smaller publisher books there that they have an ending, but it's like the world didn't blow up, so you can go back to it if you wanted to. But like
Yeah.
if the creators move on or whatever, like you still have like a satisfying ending. Um, at the end of this series, the Slasher's Apprentice, they're not gonna like make a deal with the devil and instantly like be 15 again or something and restart their life. No shade at the big two, just I've aged out of it. I've seen too many. I've seen too many back to basics. Like, all right, I'm done. No, it's cool. It's for somebody else now. That's cool. I'm gonna move on. But no, that's awesome. How far along are you all in the process? If you feel open to talking about it in terms of like how many issues have already been completed, um, and all that, because I'm always curious to see like how far ahead people have been able to get. Because I know sometimes it's seat of the pants, other times it's like, no, we're done. They're just coming out. You know,
We're a nice middle ground where we've got a few in the can, a few in the works.
nice.
We're right where we want to be.
So everyone needs to make sure they go and pick it up and buy it. So it's a big gangbusters first issue. So that way you're just rolling into that fifth issue, just confident and happy, uh, and all that. But no, seriously though, it's a really great first issue too. Like
Thank you.
the world's perfectly set up. You have a good feeling of this character. Like enough there's just enough meat on that bone to where you're like, all right, I need number two now, as opposed to just not giving enough or giving too much. Like, okay, I know where this is going, I don't really need to, because there's definitely, as I think I might have said this before we started recording, but like it definitely seems like this is going to go into some pretty nasty places, which so I'm interested to see how that all plays out. But also I had this nagging suspicion about something, but I don't want to mention it because I want to forget about it and see how the story unfolds. And because that's one of my problems is like I try to like figure out what's happening or what's going on. It's like, and I don't want to. I just want to like enjoy the thing and let it be, because that's the best way to enjoy things, I think. Not trying to anticipate it, what this character is going to do or what the ending is going to be or anything like that. But yeah, so
Well,
that's really cool.
We definitely tried to strike a balance of that where there's breadcrumbs and there's twists coming and there's things in store that we won't spoil here today, kind of thing. But at the end of the day, we wanted to make sure each issue was a slasher fan's cup of tea for the week. Like you're gonna get some good kills. They're gonna be creative and different, and and then we'll advance the story as we go and introduce new things. But you'll also
Nice.
you could just enjoy that slasher fix at the end of the
Awesome.
day.
Awesome. Well, before I let you all go, I have two more questions, and the first one is: can you tease any of the awesome kills that may be coming that we're not that we should be looking forward to? Or if you don't want to give it away, I perfectly understand. If you want to be extremely vague, that's fine too.
There is a lava lamp.
Okay.
I was gonna say my favorite kill. One of my it's hard to have like a favorite, but
I have no idea where I mean, I'm just probably a bunch of ways that could go, but also like what ways that gonna go. So
yeah.
what does that even mean? So
Issue 2.
all right,
So make sure you buy issue
A plus
2.
response there. A plus response. And second is, as we talked about all this stuff we've been enjoying and all that, and the inspirations for the book and all that, what are your favorite slasher movies? What are ones that are near and dear to your heart? Not necessarily the best ones, but like what are the ones you like the most?
I won't repeat myself with Behind the Mask, The Rise
Yeah.
of Leslie Vernon, but also shout out Behind the Mask, Rise of Leslie Vernon. I'll say Scream. Scream's one of my favorites. That
Okay.
it kind of does a little bit of what we're trying to do with like
Mm-hmm.
examining the genre from a fun perspective, and I like that it's always a different killer, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's even probably more often than not it's more than one person, and all that kind of stuff. I like what Scream does.
Cool.
If we're only counting 2 movies, Hellraiser,
Okay.
and forgetting the rest exists. um, but if we're going just like all of the movies, I gotta go Chucky.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I love Chucky and the show. If you haven't watched the show, it
Mm-hmm.
is phenomenal.
Okay. I haven't been able to watch the show yet, but uh, I've been hooked on the Dead Meat YouTube channel for a while, and their kill counts and all that, and
Yeah.
just uh, they had that for the first 2 seasons maybe, and I'm like, this is insane. I need to check this out, but I just never get it. When it comes down to sit down and watch something, I have to take an account. Is my wife going to enjoy this as well? And she's not Chucky. That's not her cup of tea. We'll put it that way. We did watch Hellraiser like fairly recently, because she's like, I remember I used to love that movie when we were younger, and then we're watching it. She's like, I don't remember all this BDSM stuff that's being so prevalent in the first. And I'm like, you don't?
That's
Like
like
that's
the
like
whole
kind of
movie.
its
That's the
thing.
whole thing.
And I had never really, like, I know I had seen the first one at some point, but I only really remembered the third one because that was the one that was on like cable the most when I was younger. That was the one with the nightclub scene and the CD demon. I just
Mm-hmm.
remember that one, and the pillar that like had the chains come out and like ripped the skin off and all that, and all that. So like that to me, that was always like, that was Hellraiser. So when I had not seen the newest one yet, the redo. I don't call it
The one
reboot
with
because
Jamie Clayton. I think she's really good as Pinhead.
I liked it.
I heard it's really good. I just haven't gotten around to it because I think there's, if I recall correctly, I thought I've read that they're continuing with that version,
Huh.
but I don't know if that's actually true or not. It's been a while since I've heard anything about the movie, but for what I remember, it was well received and people really enjoyed it. So yeah, it's definitely one of the ones I haven't. But yeah, it's just kind of funny because my wife's and I our tastes in horror are very different. She likes the Exorcist kind of stuff, or like the very supernatural, and for me, that's like I'm putting toothpicks in my eyes trying to keep myself awake, and I'm like, but I'm not going to be able to convince her to watch Return of the Living Dead or anything like that. So we try to find our happy mediums somewhere. Like we were watching that movie Smile.
Yeah.
And I was not into it for like the vast majority of it, and I fell asleep. And then I woke up and it was like after like the cool scene at the end. And she's like, you missed the part you would have liked. I'm like, son of a.
I will say Smile 2 that's
what
one,
I've heard. We're circling
really
that movie. We'll probably be doing that this weekend.
Like I wasn't crazy about Smile 1. Like, and like I was skeptical going on Smile 2. My friends were like, let's go see Smile 2. I'm like, Smile 2. And I saw, like, okay, that slapped. That was good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like,
all right, it's moving up on the list. It's gotten knocked off a couple of times just because it's slightly over 2 hours, and I'm old. I'm sorry. It's like so. it's like almost 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday. We're like, we want to watch, and like something I'll be awake for. But okay, I'll move that up on the list then, because I've heard it's really good, and it's not like I hated the first one that much. It's just like I like the premise and all that, but it's just like it was too much of like a slow burn for me, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, 2 it plays with the premise in a way better. Yeah,
it amps everything up.
Yeah,
good. Well, I said I had 2 questions left, so I'll lie and say I have one more, and that is just because it just came to mind. Have you seen the fan Friday the 13th films that have been coming out recently?
I have
like
not.
No.
There was one where it actually takes place in the snow.
Okay.
There's like 3 where it's like the same kind of like continuity almost, and they're actually really good, like short films. I'm spacing on their titles or whatever, but I'll make sure I email them or something to y'all, because they're actually like really good, like almost like gives these people, obviously there's a whole rights thing going on with that whole series that's just insane, but like they would do like a pretty interesting job, because and I've heard a lot of good things about this In the Violent Nature film.
Yeah.
And
I really like that one.
I did watch the kill count for it, so I'm like, this seems interesting. This seems like it would be fun, but I also feel like,
it is the slowest of burns. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, like just the walking. So I'm thinking, I was trying to wonder, like, is they say in the beginning of the kill count episodes, like it's not replacing watching the movie, but for me, I think it kind of replaced watching the movie. It's like, I'm okay. Yeah, I don't need all that. I saw all the cool shit. I saw the pretzel scene. It's cool. I get it.
The pretzels. That one stands out for sure.
I respect that. But no, there's a lot of there's a lot of cool stuff in there. But yeah. So I was curious if y'all seen those yet, but not. I'll make sure I send them, because maybe you have and just it's not coming to mind. But except they were pretty popular in the slasher circle of like YouTube horror essayist people or whatever. But yeah, they were actually really, really good, tense short films and all that. So anyway, enough yabbering about that. Justin, Val, thank you so much for coming on. I had a blast talking to you all about everything, pretty much. And I appreciate you sticking with me. Let me ask all my nerdy questions about your book and your processes and the stuff you're digging and the brushes.
No, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Hope to have you all again on sometime. Maybe when the trade's out, come
Yeah,
back and do a victory lap, right?
it
That'd
should
be
be
cool.
right around Halloween if schedules hold up.
You know, every year I'm like, I should do like more stuff during like Halloween. Like get do some like just non-interview stuff, just have do some fun just like chats or like tier list things, or just like we all watch a movie beforehand and talk about it or whatever, or a series or something, and just have a bunch of people on, just have a big old party. But you know again, the year 2025 is just do the thing for me, so I'm not going to talk about it. But if you get an email,
Totally.
hopefully you'll find you well there. But yeah, both thank you so much for coming on. I really had a blast. um Now is the time to let everybody know where they can find you on social media if you want them to. Who knows
These
these days?
these days for me, it's gonna be Blue Sky, emo comic writer dot bluesky dot social. Uh, can find me pretty easy on there. That's pretty much the only place I'm posting. I technically still have an Instagram for now, but I don't know how much
Mhm.
longer that'll be around.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm also on Blue Sky. It's at valhal.bluesky. Then I've also got an Instagram that I think is also Valhal. I've changed my name so many times on there, we can't remember. It's probably that.
Oh, I remember the profile picture. That's how it's easy to tell if there's a name change. Um, so, all right, awesome. Well, I'll make
My
sure there's links to all that in the show notes below, and also where you can go get uh, Slasher's Apprentice and all that. This should be posting, within the next week and a half, I believe. I don't know if there's a final order cutoff for the book yet, or
I don't know the FOC date. The book is releasing in April.
okay,
They initially said April 30th, but the previous
okay,
book says April 16th. So I'm
okay. So the FOC will
actually,
probably be in late March then, or
yeah,
something like that.
unfortunately, I'm not 100% sure which date is right, but it will be mid or late April.
Well, I'll make sure if there is one available, there'll be some sort of code you can go find it for your comic shop, or I'm sure Mad Cave has some sort of page for
Absolutely.
it that people can go check out, because it's a really great book, and I really hope that everyone go checks out not only the first issue but sticks with it, because I certainly will be. And yeah, can't wait to read more. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.